Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and today I want to chat with you guys a little bit about the importance of non-novice lifters prioritizing their weak links. And the reason I say that is because once you're no longer a novice, gains are going to come a lot slower. They're going to come a lot slower. And particularly the intermediate, if the intermediate lifter wants to see their strength and muscle mass continue for quite some time, they're going to have to put a lot of training volume and priority into their weak links. And again, the reason I say that is because your weakest links are what's going to determine how much tension you're getting on all of your big movements. Okay, and that's an important point that needs to be made, because nobody is getting jacked and strong by doing exclusively small exercises. All right, single joint exercises are generally the icing on the cake. They're there to fill in different weak links. But we could talk about that. If a single joint exercise addresses your weakest link and you do 10 sets of failure of those single joint exercises every week, it will probably make you bigger and stronger. Okay, so this is not in any way bashing on single joint exercises. They absolutely have their place. And that's actually what I'm talking about. That's one of the things you would want to do with weak points. So what do we mean by weak points? Well, for me, from a strength perspective, and people will be like, Jason, you squat well past 500, deadlift over 600. What do you mean weak links? Yeah, I have weak links. If I didn't have weak links, I would squat 600 and deadlift 650, 700, right? Right? I have weak links. What are my weakest links on all my strength right now? Probably triceps, upper back, and adductors. Okay, those are weak links for me. Now I know people are looking at my adductors, they're going, those don't look like weak links. Well, that's why I'm only a mid 500 squatter. That's why my sumo pull is less than my conventional pull. Right? I can pull 615 conventional. You can't see me do 615 on a sumo. My wide stance squat needs work. It's the adductors. I'm having to build all that up. Same thing. My benching is held back by my triceps. My upper back needs a little more overall strength and development. Okay. Now my triceps are a much bigger length than the other two. Right? My triceps need a lot more work. They are not that big. So that's me personally. Why is it that I say this? Why does the intermediate need to focus on this? Because that's what's going to determine how strong you get on all your big movements. In other words, if you start assessing your big movements, let's say you're using the deficit deadlift and a box squat as a lower body exercise to get bigger. All right. If your upper back is limiting your deadlift, and that's limiting the amount of tonnage you can move on that deficit deadlift. Notice I said deficit because I don't recommend the conventional deadlift for gaining size overall. All right, conventional deadlift's a great test of strength. Not that great for a size builder. Now the novice can ignore that because it doesn't matter to them. I should probably make another video on that. I'll make one here coming up probably. So you're limiting your overall posterior chain development as a result of that, because that upper back is holding back that movement. Now you could obviously be doing other exercises, good mornings and reverse hypers and glute ham raises and whatever else you need to build that area up. But on your big movement, if you're being limited by the upper back, you are going to get less overall strength and development. Same thing with the squat. Let's say your hips are limiting your squat. Well, you're going to need to bring those up. Now, obviously, the squatting itself can do that. All right, well, let's say it's your glutes then. Let's say your glutes are limiting your box squat. Well, you're going to need to train those glutes. You need to train them harder. Or else it's going to limit the loads you can do on the squat, including even things like speed squat. Because that's what a lot of us, what I recommend to most of you, if you're following my advice, you're using speed boxes to build a lot of your size, right? Right? Because you're not a novice anymore, you probably should lean over towards conjugate. Well, that's going to limit your growth. Going to limit your growth big time. How about for your pressing in general? Let's say your delts are the weak link. And all your pressing. Your bench pressing, closed grip pressing, floor pressing. If your delts are the weak link, it would behoove you to probably do a bunch of overhead pressing. Maybe wide grip upright rows, laterals, whatever it is that you need to do. Bring your delts up. And your rear delts are probably weak too if that's the case. And if your rear delts are weak because your whole delt is weak and you don't spend some time doing some rear delt work to bring them up, your rowing is going to suffer. And if your rowing suffers, your biceps and lats suffer. Why? Because your rowing affects all of those. Even if you're curling, a lot of your bicep stimulation is still coming from your rows. So you better bring those rear delts up. Again, upright rows, band pull aparts, face pulls, rear delt flies, whatever it is you have to do. You're going to need to work those rear delts because it's limiting your lat, your bicep, everything potentially. Unless you go over and just do chins for them, and you'll probably be okay because chins don't require as much rear delt as rows do. But you still have a glaring weakness there. And I don't care at that point whether that's for guys chasing the whole aesthetics thing, which I'm not a fan of. I think it's ridiculous. But if that's your gig, weak rear delts are going to affect your aesthetics. You can do all the chins in the world that you want to bring up the lats and the biceps, but those rear delts are still going to be lagging, and that's going to affect you guys aesthetically, right? And if the whole delt structure is affecting your benching, your pecs are going to lag unless you come in and do a bunch of pec work, but then you're still leaving that glaring weakness. It's going to limit your overall strength potential. You don't have a stable shoulder girdle. You might be weak on the mid-range on your bench on a max. Okay, you've got to balance these things out. And weak links have to become a priority because here's the thing. The more advanced you get, the slower you gain muscle in general and the harder it is to gain muscle. But your weakest links are usually underdeveloped. And if your weakest links are underdeveloped, they will grow a little bit faster than the rest of the muscles. So if you can start bringing up your weak links, at least you're making gains. And you're making gains in a way that does what? That helps you build more muscle overall because it increases your ability to put tension on everything. And the solution is not, let's just hammer everything with tons of single joint movements, because that's not going to work. You're going to run out of training time. You're going to run out of recovery. Okay, those things need to be prioritized. And yes, you should do them. Well, people do understand. You see me doing single joint movements. Right, I do single joint exercises. They're not a priority in my training, but I do them. I do them. But this is the point when you become an intermediate where you're going to have to start addressing those things, that you're going to have to seriously go, are my hamstrings lagging? Or my rear delts lagging? Or my traps, my triceps? What's lagging here? And I can almost guarantee you 9 times out of 10 it's going to be a muscle that you can't see from the front. Right? Because novice lifters love to train those things. They love to train pecs and biceps and upper traps, maybe even quads, side, front delts, those things. I can promise you, if you're a novice, unless you run a really good program, I bet you your whole upper back's just going to be rear delts, mid traps, hamstrings, triceps, erectors. Those are probably going to be a lot of your weak links. Your weak link, one of those is going to be a weak link, if not every one of them that I listed. Because novice lifters, unless they went straight into pure strength sports type training, athletic background, they tend to train what they can see in the mirror. And they can't see themselves from behind. Right? They can't see themselves from behind. So a lot of that stuff gets neglected. Upper back, triceps, hamstrings, erectors. A real good chance that's what your weak links are. You know, not guaranteed, but you need to assess these things. But the point is you're going to make more overall progress at this point in the game if you address your weak links. And if you ignore them, you are probably going to stagnate for a couple of years and not make any real progress. Alright guys, so that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.